All right, we're back with another little painting video. I think mostly today what I wanted to talk about was how I use reference. So right now I'm painting basically this pile of Tyranid goo left over from our Space Marine. And all I did was, so I'm using my iPad and I put it into a stage manager mode. And then I opened up VisRef, which is a really awesome app. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I think I've talked about it before, where you can drop in any pictures you want. I think you can get GIFs in there too, and lay them all out. And then what I do is there's a button just to like kind of lock it so that you can't adjust anything. And then I just take that and kind of scroll around as I need to while I'm working. So basically, I just needed some simple shape language for the Tyranids because you don't see much, right? I painted one in the middle that's pretty representative of what the it's called the Hormagast, I think looks like, just like the basic little Tyranid. And painting another one right now, just the face, so you can kind of get the idea as to what's happening. And then the rest of it is just kind of the shape language, right, where you have these very spinal sort of pointy things. Everything looks like it reminds me of like a rib cage, sort of, you know. And so I'm just kind of peppering that in throughout the whole thing. And then I'm trying to figure out, a good combination of dark and light to push things forward and back. And then after that's all done, then I go in with the extra, like, drips of blood or whatever, kind of get it out together. Um, the real trick comes towards the end, and I'll add an overlay layer on top of everything, and that overlay or multiply, and that will kind of darken around the edges and make it feel right there. That makes it feel more like a volume than rather than just like a flat drawing. So that's right now I'm overdoing it, and then I'll kind of kick it back with the opacity adjustment. Also, a nice thing to do is to kind of enhance the silhouette, so darker towards the edges, making sure that the silhouette there sticks out. And then underneath this, behind Space Marine, behind the pile, I'm going to add brighter light to emphasize the silhouette and the shape of everything. Because it is really complicated and noisy. This is a good way to sort of simplify it and think about it as one larger shape. Messing with colors too. Initially, if you remember, kind of the rough thumbnail color I did, there was a lot more green in it, and so I was thinking about that, and I was like, oh, maybe I should start adding in more green. But also, if you haven't noticed, I changed the helmet. Instead of a regular Space Marine, now we're going for a Bulwark, and I figure there's no way we can have that without one of those really cool shields. So right now I'm kind of thinking about where I want the shield to be, and once again thinking about the silhouette and how it will work with the character. And then on top of this, I'm just sort of roughing in some generic lines. Also, if you do like that diagonal thing I just did, that's a really good way to find the center of something while it's in perspective. Okay, so I'm doing the trick from the last video where I'm just going to paint in symmetry mode, flat. Gonna get the general shape. Like I said, I'm not really concerned about line art because I paint over everything anyway. But I do need kind of a blueprint. It's got a skull, some sort of like laurels, I guess. That's the right word, right? And then I'm gonna do is transform it into 3D space on top of my drawing. Gonna kind of warp it a little so it's a little bent. And now I'm going back into that dark fill layer, and I'm just kind of cleaning up the silhouette of the shape. And this is so much easier than trying to draw something like this in perspective, because just the shape, the little curves and stuff, and the cross shape, all those things make it like way complicated. So now I've just flattened everything down, and see, like my skull isn't even in the same spot, but that's okay. I knew it wouldn't be, because obviously, like, I want the skull to be like raised off the base of the shield. So it's going to be at more of a 3/4 angle, whereas the one I drew was straight on. I'm just trying to think of where my light will hit. Right now, on this side of the character, we're mostly dealing with an ambient light source. So something like a sky where it's just not as intense and it's coming from like above generically. I also, when I'm painting, I tend to work dark to light for the most part. I feel like it works the best for me. It helps me get a good range of edges. You know, I'm really concerned about soft versus hard edges in my paintings. I like to sort of fuzz out a lot of the shadow area, and that helps to do that. Also, the paintbrush I'm using, I've made in Art Studio, and it's, if I push really soft, it just completely blends, and then if I start to push harder, that's when it puts down the actual color. So a lot of times, if it looks like things are just like blending and softening, that's because I'm being really uh, gentle with the brush pressure. Yeah, I feel like I've mostly got it kind of knocked in. Skull will take a couple more little passes. I'm worried about, now just making sure the edges get a little bit of a highlight and making sure that that edge looks like it's gold and metal. I'm going through and, like, I usually don't add any of this like um, damage stuff until I feel like the structure and the shape are working pretty well. So I want to make sure the actual object looks correct before adding detail, because then you'll end up getting like weird shapes and things will feel like mushy a lot of times. Another thing you can do is also just add all that damage to a different layer. But yeah, I mean, a shield's got to be kind of beat up, right? But not too beat up, because I don't want him to look like, I don't know, I don't want him to look like he's losing, right? I want to make sure he looks tough, but capable, right? So there's a certain amount of damage that I want. So I think the next video should be the entire painting from start to finish, and that'll be awesome. I think I'm surprised at actually how good the end of this painting is starting to turn out. There's a couple moments, I think it happens with every painting, where you're sitting there and you're like, is this gonna work out? I don't know. Like, it's not exactly what I had envisioned in my head, but I think it's turning out pretty good, and I'm happy with it. I think the decision to change the Space Marine to a Bulwark was a good one. Makes sense, especially with the power sword. So just kind of softening up some of the shadows now, blending stuff together. I just kind of noodle it until I'm happy, which maybe isn't the best technical approach, but thanks for watching, guys. Later.